We have breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ. The Detroit Tigers have pitched a combined no-hitter. First of this season, they take out the Toronto Blue Jays by a score of 2-0. Vladimir Guerrero grounding out for that final out. Alex Lang was on the bump. He went an inning. He came in for the save. Matt Manning did the bulk of the work. 6 2/3, 5 strikeouts, and 3 walks. A big day for the Tigers as they have their 9th no-hitter in Major League history. And it hasn't been that long since they did it. Back in May of 2021, they pitched a no-hitter. Let's welcome in David Sampson here for his thoughts. David, obviously a big day for the Tigers here as they get the no-hitter. What's your reaction to this result?
Watching Matt Manning pitch today, thinking about that in 2016, we drafted Braxton Garrett, who's also pitching today, 2 spots ahead of Manning in the first round. That's quite a first round. 2 guys in the big leagues. The guy for the Marlins who blew the save was actually drafted just ahead of Braxton Garrett. In any case, what I was really thinking about is when you go through a season and a game like this, Matt Manning had just come off an injury. I think it's his 3rd start. And A.J. Hinch had no question. He had to pull him. Everyone gets upset. How could you do it? 91 pitches. Give the kid a chance. But you don't do that to a young pitcher. You do not let him get to 110, 120, 130 pitches. It is simply not worth it. You give it to the bullpen. Give him a chance to get the combined no-no. There's only been 20 of those, so it's still really, really special.
And in terms of, what you've seen from the Tigers, 39 and 49, they're sitting 3rd in the, in the Central Division in the American League. So, for the Tigers, this is a bright spot in what hasn't necessarily been the brightest of seasons so far.
It's been tough. There was some question, could the Tigers possibly compete in what may not be the best division in baseball? Wink, wink, if you can see that. And it just hasn't worked out too well. Their young core is good, but such a big part of their payroll is going to Miggy, who, as you know, is a Hall of Famer, first ballot. But at the same time, when you're putting a team together, hard to give all that money to one player. And they've done a good job of getting ready for the post-Miggy era, which is going to start next year. But at the same time, you get a moment like this as you're heading into the All-Star break on the final day before the final game before the break. And does it set you up for a better second half? I don't really believe in that. The players don't think that way. The front office doesn't think that way. It's truly a great moment in a season, but it doesn't change whether the Tigers will sell, buy. Do they think they have a better chance now versus not? It's just one of those things that happens in an MLB season that makes baseball so great.
What about the Jays here, David? This is the second time the Tigers have no-hit the Jays. They did it with Verlander back in 2011, but this Jays team is one of the best hitting teams in baseball. You mentioned that we're now going into the All-Star break. Yes, maybe you don't use this as a springboard to success, but when you look at where the Jays are sitting and what the expectations are for the Jays, obviously this is not something, the mindset you want if you're going into the All-Star break if you're a member of the Jays.
You don't. And I've been on both sides of no-hitters. I've had pitchers who pitched them, and I've been no-hit, and it stinks. It really does, because you just don't want to be that part of history. And the Blue Jays have had that sort of season where they're deciding, should they add? And I do believe they need to. This is their window to be competitive. This is their window to get into October, maybe even a deep run into October. Jeremy, I thought they'd win the division. Obviously, I don't think that anymore, but certainly before the season started. And when you look at that lineup, that's not a lineup that should ever be no-hit under any scenario. But that's the beautiful thing about baseball. Any given day, something like this can happen. But I feel the same way about the Blue Jays as I felt about the Tigers. They're not changing their strategy heading into the break or heading into the All-Star break or heading to the deadline. They know they need to add. They don't watch this game and Mark Shapiro says, hey, we really got to add now. That's not going through their mind.
Well, and possibly one of those, you talk about it being a negative thing, but it could also be a positive thing in that maybe the Jays do a bit of a reset as they go into the unofficial midway point of the season. David Sampson joining us here on CBS Sports HQ. The Detroit Tigers no-hit the Toronto Blue Jays. They get a 2-0 result. Thanks, David. Always great to see you. As you look at the Tigers no-hitters since 1984, so 3 pitchers combined today to get the no-no, but they've also done it against Toronto before. You see, back in 2011, middle of the board there, Justin Verlander did it. Verlander actually pitched 2 no-hitters for the Tigers. He did it in 2007, but today's a day of celebration for the Tigers. They're sitting 3rd in the AL Central, but riding high today after pitching a no-hitter.